Hey, welcome to the Star Wars Unlearned podcast. My name is Josiah Shuett, and I'm joined by Nathan Hawley. What we're doing is we're looking at Star Wars from the perspective of its creator. So we're turning off our fan brains and really just trying to uncover the story that Lucas is trying to tell. We're in the middle of our series on the Phantom Menace, where we explore the filmmaking, the history, the mythology, and everything else that Lucas and his team used to bring this first chapter of the Star Wars saga to life. So join us as we dive in and unlearn what we have learned about the Star Wars story.
Into the streets of Theed, which is really cool. Man, I think you mentioned this earlier, but I remember reading somewhere that George had in mind here, like the tanks in France, right? World War II. Isn't that kind of what he was thinking with that idea of like just big military tanks in the middle of a peaceful village kind of look?
I don't know. I haven't heard that specifically, but that makes total sense to me just hearing it from you right now. Yeah, that makes a lot of sense.
Oh, really? Oh, I thought I heard that somewhere. I thought you told me that.
I'm sure I didn't, but I'm sure that sounds like. I mean, we know Lucas isn't interested in World War II. He references it a lot, especially with the Empire. So that would make total sense to me. I wouldn't be surprised if that is the case.
Yeah, and it reminds me of that, just seeing of it, because you have beautiful streets in Naboo, Theed, right, and then you get it's just like we talked about, it's just infested. See the big military tanks right in the middle of it. And I remember seeing that in my history classes, like just all the German tanks sitting in the middle of like Paris or something. I was like, wow, it's just very striking, to see something like that, like an artful city like Theed or Paris, and see the military, how they've ravished it, and how it's just, there's a war going on, that's what came to mind just aesthetically first, just crawling with droids. So, which is such a beautiful contrast, I think, just artfully, because it's compared, you have all these like vines growing in the green and the plants, you have these pale, lifeless, buggy droids through it. Yeah, it's just quite a contrast. So anyway, additional thought. Again, I don't know. I'm assuming George had that in mind, just because, like you said, he is a big World War II buff. And I mean, we know from episode 4, he took shot by shot from some scenes from World War II to make some of the X-Wing battles and stuff. But so I would think that would be an inspiration here. Do you know anything on that?
No. I guess so. That's news to me, is that idea of it being the reference to like the German tanks in France. But I think that's a cool idea though. I know we've talked about, the idea of this infestation, these mechanical, ugly tanks, in this beautiful city. Like when they first invaded, this is, when we talked about that first invasion, that we talked about some of those ideas. And I think that, it definitely runs through here. But it is interesting. I do like the idea that I didn't really think about this before, that of course the Gungans were there to draw out all the droid forces so that there's only just a few guarding the city. And so if you look at this scene, there's not a whole lot of droids. There's a fair amount, but presumably before this, the entire army was in the city or hanging out somewhere around there. And so the Gungans are a diversion. I guess, again, this is all obvious in the movie, but I've seen it so many times, I don't really think about it, that the Gungans right now are making this possible for them to kind of sneak in and deal with the droids here and the droids in the hangar, where there's just a handful and there's not a whole army waiting for them. So, so I just, when I see this shot, I just look at how many droids aren't there, because that's what the Gungans have done to distract him and make this little sneaky covert mission possible.
Yeah, which again brings us back the greed of the Trade Federation, right? They're locked away in their peaceful towers. Send the army away, take care of it. But yeah. How do you want to approach this next part? I mean, we get Qui-Gon telling Anakin, get somewhere safe. We get the cool little light signals between
red group and blue group is flashing their colors.
Yeah, that was cool. But again, man, I love the sound, because there's not a lot of music here until the battle actually starts. And I love that sound that goes right up. It's just, you hear the speeder basically humming. There's like that little split second of silence, and then it blasts the tank. It's so cool. Yeah. So anyway, what do you think, man? Or what's George got to say about this scene?
This scene, I think we can move kind of quickly through this one, because it's really just kind of what you see happen is what you can get out of it. It's just, the battle starts, the Captain Panaka's group is distracting, taking all the attention, so Padme and the Jedi can sneak into the hangar behind everything. There's that shot of them kind of sneaking behind the action into the hangar, and Anakin, and then Anakin, Qui-Gon tells Anakin to go find cover, and he sneaks off, and nothing too crazy. I think the one thing I will say is kind of in the next. It's kind of the same scene, but it's a different location, which is where the Neimoidians and Darth Maul are. If you're ready for that. So in the script, there's just an extra part of that scene. So Newt says, "I thought the battle was going to take place far from here. This is too close." Again, the Trade Federation, they're always cowardly and they're hubris, like thinking they were safe. It's actually nope. They snuck up on you. You should have seen this coming. You're an idiot. But then you see Darth Maul enter the frame. And originally this scene was slightly longer, and Darth Maul says, "I told you there was more to this. The Jedi are involved." And so Darth Maul had one extra line there, which is kind of a callback to that last conversation we had. We ended with them talking to Sidious and him saying, "Wipe them out." And Darth Maul was kind of talking about, they're having this conversation about the Jedi are not going to interfere. Qui-Gon Jinn wouldn't do that, so Darth Maul and Sidious were kind of suspicious of the Jedi. Now Darth Maul is kind of going, "See, I told you." You used to calling out the Neimoidians as the idiots that they are. So it's just a nice little moment that's not in the final movie, but that motivates him kind of stepping up into frame there. And to me, it's kind of similar to it reminds me of the scene where Vader finds out about Obi-Wan breaking out Princess Leia, and Death Star is like, Obi-Wan is here, and so he goes off to face him. And basically what Maul does here, he's like, "Oh, the Jedi are here. Okay, we'll see you guys. I'm gonna go face the Jedi."
Man, that would have been cool. But I understand why he didn't either. So I can see that.
Yeah, it kind of makes Maul's reveal more of a surprise, and it might have just been cut for time. I'm not sure why it was cut, but
yeah. I will say, this is a couple thoughts, and again, this is all just me, not necessarily George, but I like the bookends that we get here. Like this is a bookend. We start on Naboo, we end on Naboo for the movie, but also I've never quite noticed this before, but Naboo is really giving me a lot of Yavin vibes from Episode 4, and I don't know. It just seems like this could look like a battle if it was taking place on Yavin. It almost seems like, I don't know if he had this in mind, but it seems kind of neat. Like, Episode 4, it was more space focused. Here, it's more ground focused. It's kind of a neat counterbalance there, maybe. But again, who knows? I don't know if George actually meant that, but it's kind of neat. It seems similar.
It's a cool idea thinking about the Battle of Yavin and how, there's probably a ground battle afterwards, why the rebels had to leave because their base is exposed. And so we've seen this in like video games and comic books, like in Battlefront, you can play on Yavin. I think it would have been cool to see like a kind of a battle like this, like you're talking about on Yavin, to see what that would look like on screen. Presumably happening shortly after the rebels' short celebration, like, "Hey, we're gonna hand out medals." Not you, Chewbacca. Okay, let's get out of here. And it's like we gotta evacuate because the Empire is right here. They're gonna send all their troops to attack us, especially since we just blew up their favorite toy. So it would have been cool to see that. And yeah, you're right. It probably would, a ground battle like this I guess we saw it in Return of the Jedi on Endor, but a kind of forest green, a battle that in ruins, like you see in the Battlefront. If anyone's listening who's played the Battlefront games, you've seen what that could look like, and it was a cool idea. It's too bad we didn't get to see that ever.
Yeah. So it's kind of fun here to, I don't know. Again, I don't know if George had that in mind, but it's just kind of fun to see the focus a little different, how it's flipped. So, and I just got a comment on the Joys, man. The sound, I just think it's great. Like as soon as that this is backing up just a hair, but as soon as that tank gets blown up by Panaka's crew, I just hear all the droids just instantly into action, all their comments and stuff. Just Roger, there they are, they're here, fire. This is great. I like it. Yeah, it all of a sudden just explodes. It's like the impression I get is like dropping a rock in an anthill. You know what I mean? I don't know if you ever did as totally. A kid. It just kind of feels like that. It's like, whoa, boom,
Yeah. I never did that. I was a good kid when I didn't.
Good, you should.
Yeah. But you evil man or evil boy. But
I know, right?
No, I know you're good. But no, yeah. But I get the image. That is an apt description of it for sure. I also find it interesting that you see the kind of glimpse of other Neimoidians in the background of that shot in the palace. There's just the other Neimoidians kind of hanging out in the background. We don't really see much of them. In the rest of the movie.
That's cool. I hadn't really noticed that. Yeah,
not sure and I think they show up in the visual dictionary. I'm sure they have some little blurb, little description of what they do, but I just kind of noticed them for the first time. I'm like, oh yeah, there's more Neimoidians. We see them on the bridge of the ship, but we don't see these. Kind of look like, I don't know, they're in fancy clothes. They're not like soldiers. They're not pilots like we see in the ship. They're more just kind of I don't know what regular Nemoidians do, but they're just hanging out in the background being cowards, I guess.
Yeah, which is so cool how George just puts those characters in. Like there's just always so much life. So I think about the characters in Return of the Jedi who are with Palpatine in the throne room. Like they serve zero purpose for the story, but they're there.
Yeah, you got to fill out the background. Again, it's that immaculate reality. It's that lived-in world where things are happening beyond what's just happening in the plot. There's a world that's living and breathing outside of it and around it. So yeah, good call. Good call.
So then we get to the hangar scene, and you can stop me if you want to go back, but I just think I have to comment on this because they commented on this in Clone Wars when they recreated this scene for another episode of the hangar. How they commented how I think it was ILM or whoever designed this had problems trying to fit the Naboo starfighters into the hangar with the tails being so long. And then in Clone Wars, they finally reveal like we had this problem too. And so they just designed a little hole in the wall where the tails fit into. That was great. Yeah. Have you heard that?
I had heard that. Yeah. Or like they had, I think, I can't remember who one crew member of Clone Wars might have been Dave Filoni. He was talking to John Knoll, whoever it was talking to John Knoll about that problem, and he said, "Oh yeah, we had the same problem in Phantom Menace. We just cheated it, so you never actually see them, fit in there perfectly. You're never get a wide shot of how they fit." Yeah.
I always thought that was interesting. Yeah, because it's a big space, but I don't understand how that works. Like, I just don't understand why that would be a problem because I don't understand digital creating anything. But it is kind of a funny note. You just never see the tails of them when they're in the hangar.
Well, it's they have such a huge art department and everything's getting designed by different people at different times. So the hangar is probably designed. I know for a fact they designed the ships by themselves because you're going to see them, but they're not meant to just stay in the hangar. You're going to see them flying around. So you want to know how they look from different angles. And so the fighters were designed by themselves and the hangar was probably designed separately by itself also. But when it came time to put them together, they realized, our designs don't fit well. But at this point, it's too late to change the designs too much. So we'll just cheat it and not actually show it. So I'm guessing that's how it went down. But there's little things like that happen a lot of the time. And yeah, if you pick my brain long enough with about film stuff, I can talk about a lot of things like that. Little happy accidents, little weird things here and there that you can notice that don't quite line up. But I think that's part of the magic of movies. The little mistakes here and there. I kind of like those. But
yeah, definitely. Yeah. So this is cool, and I want to hear your thoughts on this, and maybe just what you know from George. But to me, it's always seemed like we're just about to break off into 3 different basically stories or parts of the battle, right? We're gonna have the Queen, we're gonna have the Jedi, and then we're gonna have the Gungans. So the battle on 4, I guess if you include Anakin. But we're gonna have like 4 stories simultaneously going on. But it's kind of neat because I feel like they all go through the same story plots. Like here they're all on the offense. Like this is the first time in the story we've seen them take the offense against the droids. And then we're going to see them fight, and it looks like they almost lose, and then they all come back to win at the same time. So like all 4 of them kind of go through that story arc there. Yeah, and I just seeing this here as they burst into the plaza, but also to the hangar. The droids are totally caught off guard. And it's just, they're shocked. And then the Gungans are the Nemoidans are caught off guard. It's just kind of a fun aspect. But I don't know is that true? I mean, it seems like it, but is that kind of what George had in mind for here? Like all 4 of them go through the same trial, basically?
Yeah, absolutely. And Lucas talked about that in the commentary, actually, and in other places where, yeah, because you're dealing with 4 separate storylines at the same time, it can be very confusing if you're going to be jumping back and forth. There needs to be some kind of continuity. So having each phase, each branch of the battle go through the same kind of story arc. Okay, they're doing well. Okay, now they're starting to, they've hit a low point. Oh no, our heroes are being captured. They're in a bad spot all the way around. Oh, they're starting to do better again. And they each have their victory in a different way. And yeah, the trick then becomes, what order do you put it in? Like, do you have, does Anakin succeed first, or does Padme succeed first and then Anakin and then the Gungans, or do you put the Gungans first, or and so that's kind of where the editing trickery kind of the tricky part of editing came in, was trying to figure out the right order. He's talked about that, which ones to put first and last. So, but you're absolutely right. Yeah, that is a way to follow the story, and it maintains a level of tension, like the tension and the tension and release throughout this whole sequence is maintained because each scene kind of flows into the next one, even though it's not flowing into the next scene in terms of the characters and the action. The tone of what's happening, the story of what's happening, the highs and the lows match, and so it helps you follow what's happening much more clearly, as if it was rather than if it was 4 different storylines doing completely different things at all times. So yeah, you totally called it.
Yeah, I thought that was really artfully done. It's kind of a neat thing. And I also appreciate here, just going back to the hangar scene. They burst in and Qui-Gon tells Anakin to find cover. It's just really neat. It's interesting to compare this to the hangar scene in Episode 4. There's a lot of similarities, but obviously a lot of differences as well. Like you see, there's a lot of boxes and crates around, and you see kind of similar lights on the floors. But it just seems like by the time you get to Episode 4, things are so much slower and harder to do. Like even just putting R2 in the ship, like here he's just come down and grabbed up right away. The pilots just jump in super quick, they're off. But Episode 4, it's like really slow. They got to load R2 from the top, and climbing in is really slow. I mean, I realize they're in a slightly different situation, but it just is it's kind of a neat contrast, because we've talked about how Episode 4 just shows how things were tougher. They're not quite as on their game, maybe, since the Empire took over. It just seems like, I don't know. Again, I don't know what George had in mind here, but it's kind of a neat contrast. There's more color to these ships. There's more shine. Yeah, I don't know. Have you heard anything on that? Or
well, I've heard. Yeah, Lucas talks about the kind of preamble to the battle in Episode 4, where I would compare that scene actually to the Gungans leaving the swamp and getting ready for their battle with the Trade Federation, because that's a very slow build as well. This is kind of a surprise attack, but that in this case, in the Gungans' case and in the case of Episode 4, the pilots and the rebels getting ready to fly off to the Death Star, there is a preparation that we're seeing everyone get ready. We're seeing the Gungans, load the boomas the boomas onto their catapults, and the kind of quiet, the kind of calm before the storm. Jar Jar saying steady, steady. We see all the pilots getting in there, in Episode 4, getting in the X-wings and the Y-wings, and getting sent out, and the droids getting loaded up. So there is this tension building up and ready for like we're pulling the the arrow back and back and back, and there's tension on the bow, and finally be released. Actually, very much like that's literally what happens in Two Towers, right? Peter Jackson does the exact same thing for Helm's Deep battle, where it's all about the preparation, and finally that one guy lets go, the old guy lets go the arrow, and it kicks off, right? So it's a similar thing that's happening here. But yes, the hangar, the fact R2D2 getting loaded up, that's always that's just a fun thing. Just seeing R2D2 do anything makes me happy, but seeing R2D2 get loaded up like that, makes me think of New Hope and all the other adventures he's going to have from here on out. But yeah, another interesting thing about this hangar scene is sometimes, well, the cool thing about this hangar scene, for me at least, I noticed this time, was that the Jedi and the Queen is the second time they're entering the hangar. It's the exact same angle, same shot. So the first time they walked in, it was to board her ship, the ship of peace, to run away from the blockade, right? But now they're running in, guns blazing, and they're, it's the exact same angle of them walking through that door, and then they're taken out of the battle droids, and all these ships, these fighter ships, are going out to battle the ship up in the blockade, or I guess it's not blockade anymore, but it's just the droid control ship. So just the contrast of those two, how the Queen has changed. She's no longer in her, royal. She's not hiding behind all her guards and her handmaidens and her kind of mourning dress. She's in her battle suit right now. She's firing guns and taking out battle droids along with the rest of them. So I just like the contrast of those two scenes in this exact same location.
Yeah, boy, what a physical picture of just Padme's arc. Yeah, that's really cool. I didn't realize it's the same scene or same shot. That's really cool. I like that.
Yeah, and it might have even been filmed on the same day, considering they had almost the exact same setup. It probably wasn't, but like, it's just so similar. It makes me think sometimes they shoot things like that back to back if they're going to have the same camera in the same location. But I just like the ships all taking off, and that first pilot who gets hit by the tank, and you just follow it, like he just pinwheels down to the ground and explodes. It's just like, oh yeah, woo, okay, that's like our first I don't know if it's our first death, but it's one of them in in this sequence.
Yeah, and I really appreciate that scene too, because you show that the Trade Federation learned a little bit, you know. Like they put a guard here now.
Yeah, that's awesome. That's park a tank there. Yeah,
yeah. Whereas the Queen got away, so they didn't have anyone guarding the hangar in their arrogance, and now it's like, well, we better put a tank by the hangar.
That's smart. I like that.
Yeah. I've always thought that was kind of neat. Like, oh, they learned a little bit, but at the same time, they're still completely arrogant, like in sending the entire fleet away, and yeah, all that stuff. But yeah, I appreciate that shot too. And again, that just reminds me of World War II. Just that shot of seeing the ship go down like that. And it's like, wow. You could definitely see a shot like that from, like firsthand footage of the warplanes in World War II flying over a beautiful field in Europe, and this plane just spirals out of control to plummet in flames. Yeah.
It's true, because you don't really get a chance to see a starship battle in the atmosphere in the sky. So it's like the first. I really only look at a plane or a ship like dying in the atmosphere. The first time, each space battle in Star Wars tries to be different from the last one. I should say, it's not always a space battle, but like ship battle tries to be vehicle battle, whatever you want to call it, tries to be different from than the last one. And so the first time we ever saw a battle like in the sky in an atmosphere, kind of like an old school World War II dogfight, was in Force Awakens. That was the first time we saw it there. And so this is kind of like our first glimpse in George's Star Wars, our only glimpse of that kind of what that would look like to have like a battle over Theed, and in Revenge of the Sith, the Battle of Coruscant is in the atmosphere technically. But it's not actually low enough where there's, ships like plowing into buildings and stuff or flying in between skyscrapers. But
yeah, it feels like space still. Yep.
Yeah, it's still in space, but you can still, there's enough atmosphere you can see like smoke and fire and stuff, which is another way they're trying to change it up. But yeah, I always like that. Yeah, that moment of like, I don't know why it's weird to say I like it because it's the good guy dying, but it's a
yeah I know.
It's a I don't know I don't know. George likes to pause on these like small moments, like you don't know who that guy is, but hats off to him, for doing his best, and he didn't make I don't know. There's something kind of cool about that moment that he pauses to reflect on it. I'm not sure if maybe he was trying to reference World War II there, maybe because he likes that stuff. So I don't know, but it's just a cool moment. Not sure exactly why he put it there, but something about it I like.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I agree. It if nothing else, it at least shows the stakes that they're in. It's like, oh, okay, this isn't just going to be a sweep. We're fine. Yeah. So I've that moment always struck me too. Just as a kid watching it, it's like, wow. I don't know. I couldn't put my finger on it, but it's like, wow, here we go, I guess.
Another weird thing in this scene is Padme uses her queen voice when she says "get to your ships." Like she has that lower kind of like it's pitched down. So I think it's in the trailer. If you watch the trailers for this movie, it's one of them. You hear her say that line, but it's a higher pitch. So they pitched her up, or it's her natural voice. And here, for a queen voice, she's always pitched down a bit artificially in the process later. Part of that was to disguise, that it was actually Padme. But I think part of it was just to make her sound more, give her more authority, so less like a 14-year-old girl, more like a queen, I guess. But I'm not exactly sure why they did it in this scene, because it doesn't show up again for the rest of the battle. She talks like Padme before this and after it. So I think it's interesting. It might have been just for the sound mix, so it's easier to hear, or maybe it might have been like a story reason, like, oh, this is the queen giving an order, but she gives orders later. So I'm not sure. It was just a weird thing I noticed a while ago. I was like, oh, she's using her queen voice there. I wonder why they did that. But again, I bring up something I don't have an answer to, but I just thought it was interesting.
Hey, at least you brought up something this time instead of me always throwing the curveballs at you.
I do it all the time. We're both guilty of that for sure.
Yeah, definitely. That is cool. It's interesting. I mean, it must have mattered somewhat, because if they even changed it for the trailer, there must be some significance, I would think.
As Qui-Gon says, nothing happens by accident.
That's right. That's right. And I do like that. I mean, it's just watching this now. I was like, here's Padme. She's at the front. She's right with the Jedi. She's commanding her people. It's like, wow, you've really changed. Yeah, definitely. So maybe that's just part of it.
Yeah, she's giving orders now. She's like commanding troops in battle, where at the beginning of this movie, she was like, no, we must continue to rely on negotiation. I'm too scared to, it's how much she's changed. It's so cool to see her. She's talked, she's extended the olive branch to the Gungans. She's humbled herself to them, and she's come back to fight. But now she actually is, and we get to see her actually, doing what she said she would do, and she's leading her people in the way that needs to be done. So it's super cool to see.
Yeah, and it's the first time we see her with a blaster. Yeah, man, she's actually shooting. So yeah. Then we go to space. Man, this scene is so cool. It is so cool. I remember as a kid always kind of being reminded of the Death Star, just looking at the Trade Federation ships, particularly when we get to episode 2, but I always reminded of it here. And I mean, you just can't help but think of it. Like, we're going in, this is the Death Star battle, from episode 4. But I never noticed this before, but they fly by the moon, or the moon's kind of there in the background, which is kind of a nice touch. We haven't seen that yet. And then, as the camera turns, then we get this huge swarm, again, just poking the hive. Here comes all the droid, vulture droids, the fighters. And it's just, this is kind of what I think all of us were sort of looking back on and expecting what would have happened at episode 4, like when you poke the Death Star. But we didn't do that. And I'm sure there's a lot of reasons for that. I mean, probably just it was difficult to film that many ships back then, but also maybe just the arrogance of the Empire. But here it's just so cool to see there's this flood of ships coming at him from, I don't know, 20 Naboo starfighters. So it's pretty neat.
Yeah, totally. I think I've talked about this before, but if not, I'll bring it up again. Or wait, that doesn't make sense. If I haven't brought this up before, cool. If I have brought this up before, sorry, everybody, you're going to hear it again. And this is just a simple matter of having the audience be comfortable, that they can understand what's happening, is that the good guys are moving left to right and the bad guys are moving right to left. And that's a holdover from, I think, Greek theater, where the bad guy would always enter in that, would that be stage? I always get this wrong. Is stage right from the audience perspective or stage right from the actor's perspective? Whatever. The bad guys enter right to left and the good guys move left to right. And there's a lot of reasons for people to think, just because, we read, at least in the Western world, we read left to right. So it's more comfortable for us. We associate that with good stuff. And reading right to left right to left is harder. But you'll see that in this scene also, the Gungans in the Federation is the same thing. The Gungans are moving left to right, and the Bow droids move right to left. This is switched in Attack of the Clones, where the clone troopers are moving right to left, foreshadowing them becoming the Empire, becoming the stormtroopers. Wow, potentially. Cool. I haven't heard George Lucas specifically say that, but we know he follows those rules of screen direction, so it would have, he would have been aware of that. He was breaking that rule, I guess. And it's not, and that rule is broken a lot, but for most of the time you see the good guys flying left to right, or marching left to right, whatever it is. That's just it's just there for continuity, and also just there's something we subconsciously an audience likes about that. The good guys moving left to right. So you see that, yeah, it's been in storytelling visual storytelling since Greek theater. So long, very, very old tradition.
Yeah, I didn't realize it went back that far. That's pretty cool. And I don't know, I'm just watching it. It's like, wow, that thinking back, like you can feel that. As you mentioned that with the clone troopers, like, wow, yeah, I can see that. I can feel that. Just, I don't know. Evil's always moves right to left, I guess.
And there's plenty of examples where this doesn't happen in Star Wars. It's just not a hard and fast rule. I guess where it happens in Battle of Hoth too. Actually, good guys are left to right, and the walkers and everything are moving right to left. So there is some continuity with it, but this doesn't have to be there. It just helps. I think it's just an extra thing you can do to kind of clue in the audience to what's happening. So then we go to, it's the droids getting activated, right?
Mm-hmm. Oh, great scene.
I love this part. It's so cool.
Oh man. Wow. And again, there's not much music. It's just so eerie to take the music out of it. And you just feel it. Oh, you just feel it with the Gungans. Even Jar Jar, how he says steady, like, yeah, it's a little goofy, but you can feel the tension. Like, it's the droids realize, like, we're not getting through that thing. Time to change the tactic a little bit. Yeah, we finally get the big reveal of what these big giant transports are. And to see them all unfold like that is just, wow. So cool.
I know, it's super cool. I don't know where he got the ideas for that, but it's really, really cool idea.
I don't know what to say about it. It's just so cool.
Mm-hmm.
That's
Oh, yeah.
just amazing.
I agree. Like I said earlier, these shots look so real to me. Like, I mean, obviously I think it's real grass that when the droids kind of like unclick and like unlock and they start to stand up. But also just it's really impressive the animation in this
Yes.
sequence because it's so easy when you have this many droids that look identical and they're standing in rows and everything's just perfectly aligned. It's so easy to make it look too artificial and too perfect. So there's enough of just perfect variation where each droid is kind of slightly out of sync, or each droid kind of reaches for his gun a little bit later than the other one, or when they're marching, a couple of them are kind of turning their head a little bit because they have those kind of like chicken movements where they're just really short little jerky movements, moving their heads around. It's just really hard to get that to look authentic and real. And so I think they really nailed the animation on this sequence in such a really, and make it really threatening. Like the droids are never more threatening, I think, than they are right here. Like there's something just super cool about it. I always was fascinated with these shots as a kid. I still love looking at them today.
Yeah, I do too. Yeah, and episode 1, I've never really thought of like the droids as silly. I mean, that kind of came along a little bit in episode 2, mainly episode 3, but here, like, you really get the sense like that. No, there is a threat, and I feel like at this moment, well, I should say like the last moment when they start attacking the droid ship is when we first start to see, okay, this is a big deal. This isn't just going to be a couple droids. Like we see all those vulture droids just come off of that ship and just start wave after wave flying towards the Naboo fighters. And now here, I mean, it's just like, whoa, we've really poked the hive. Here they come. And I appreciate it. I appreciate even Captain Tarple's there saying like, ouch time. Like, whoops, here we go. Here we go. Yeah. And so eerie. Just that close zoom in he's got on that one battle droid where you can see all the rest in the background, but I don't know, it just kind of feels like a stare down, like a chess game of like, okay, well, we're going to unveil our secret weapon now. Like, ooh, here we go. Then the music starts, like you said, there's that quiet build up. The tension is just great. I love it.
Yeah, it's so cool. The music kicks in right as the droids, come to life essentially. And it is, again, that idea of these kind of sort of like this army of the dead. There's like skeletons kind of rising. I've talked about this before, but in Jason and the Argonauts tradition, there's the idea of they plant dragon's teeth, and out of the ground, like spring these like skeleton warriors, and they kind of just rise out of the ground. Just kind of some, and this just reminds me of that. They look like skeletons, like kind of bundles of bones, and all of a sudden they just come to life like a zombie army.
Yeah,
start marching forward, and it's yes, and I love that. Again, this idea of the hubris of the Neimoidians, they have complete control over their droids. They're unafraid of letting them, they're afraid of the droids like turning against them if they were autonomous, so they keep them in control. They control them completely, but of course, Anakin unknowingly exploits that and destroys their whole army falls apart. And because they are it's like, as you said, they're super intimidating. They're not really goofy in this movie quite yet. They look kind of awkward and useless at the beginning when it's just versus the Jedi. When it's just a couple of them, it's like, okay, these Jedi are cutting through them like butter, like we said. They're just, they're not intimidating. But in this huge number against Gungans, then yeah, they're a threat. And so, but a threat that could be more threatening, could be more effective if they weren't tied to that control ship, which again is that fatal flaw that the Neimoidians have, which is their greed, they're cowardly, and their hubris.
Yeah, boy. I never, ever thought about them as skeletons, but that makes perfect sense. Yeah, like zombies. Because I know the stormtroopers were supposed to be designed that way too, right? Kind of the hollow eyes, the white and black look. Yeah. Wow. Maybe, well, now that I'm talking about this, maybe we did mention this before, but I have forgotten about it if we did talk about this before. But yeah, just the zombie look. Like, whoa.
Yeah, I'm trying to remember. But yeah, I know we talked about the droids because like originally they were painted white as well. And eventually kind of switched to the tan. But yeah, they're kind of meant to be kind of skeletons of their creators, which the Neimoidians were originally more like Geonosians. They changed the Geonosian design a little bit to give them more kind of like bug-like legs and stuff. But originally they basically just looked like battle droids with skin on them. That's what the Neimoidians looked like. So yeah, so it is sort of this. It would have been if they had kept the original designs for the Neimoidians, if they had the budget to make the Neimoidians look the way George wanted them to, it would have looked like an army of skeleton Neimoidians attacking.
That makes sense. Yep. I do remember some of that now. I guess the zombie part of it really strikes me. It's like a really, yeah, gangly, kind of Living Dead sort of look. Yeah, soulless. Yeah. And then when they get to the shield generator, or when they get to the shield, I remember even as a kid, I was like, what's going to happen? Can they get through that thing? The tension's there, and you kind of see the droids hesitate for a second, and then they push right through, and you're like, oh no, here it is. They can just walk through that thing. It's pretty cool to see. Yeah, again, just the tension rising. Like, oh, they're not safe behind the shield anymore. I mean, from the tank, sure, but not from the droids walking through. Whew.
Yeah, and I think another thing that makes this so threatening, what makes Captain Tarple say "ouch" time, is if you think about it, it's really medieval warfare versus modern warfare. Like the Gungans have catapults and slingshots, and they have cavalry. They're on they're riding animals, and then the droids have tanks and guns. It's like Alexander the Great's army fighting a modern day army. Like they have no chance. Like we talked about this before, but like the Gungans don't win here. There's no scenario where the Gungans come out of this alive unless the attack on the droid control ship goes forward. So it's just seeing them load up that catapult, it's like, wow, you guys are so not ready for this. Like this is going to be a massacre. And they have that shield, and so you're like, okay, they made it. They're good. They got the shield, but as soon as the droids walk through, okay, well, we're done. So it's just countdown until they're all dead. We think that's what the audience is at this point. They don't know if anyone's going to succeed. So that is a huge downer. It's like one of the first big downer moments in this battle where we go, oh, the good guys are in huge trouble right now.
Great point. Yeah, great point. Which we know this is a big theme that George really likes, right? I mean, he really likes that native, primitive versus modern technology thing. We see that several times throughout Star Wars, but yeah, he always really liked that. And here we go. We see again.
Yeah, exactly. And here, it's not the Gungans actually win the day, unfortunately, but we do get that in Return of the Jedi, where the Ewoks actually do defeat without any help from. There's no droid control ship that helps them. It's actually the Ewoks themselves. The little teddy bears win the day. So, yeah, it's cool to see that kind of. It's sort of like revenge for not revenge, because the Gungans did technically win. They didn't, but they were. It was bad for them. A lot of Gungans died, and so Return of the Jedi kind of has a nice little comeuppance for the forces of evil, where you have like the primitive natives that you kind of underestimated get to finally take you out.
Yeah, I know George really was inspired by that. It's also fun to watch, like just thinking about this, just the whole idea of like a bubble. I mean, everything's bubbles, the little boombas or boomers and things like that. It's like, wow, it's just kind of fun. Like, what a creative concept to think of, like these water balloons basically that short circuit these droids. It's just kind of fun to watch. I just had never thought about that before, of like, how do you make a water race fight a bunch of droids? Like, what would you do? What would you make that look like? It's like, wow, I never thought about that. Like, let's give them bubble weapons. Let's give them bubble shields and bubble shield, like handheld shields. And it's like, wow, I never thought about that. That's kind of cool. At least from that angle. Yeah.
Yeah. I think it's no mistake. Yeah. Like he didn't give them guns. He didn't give them cannons. Like he wanted them to feel they're warriors. Yes, but they're not, they don't have like the unfair advantage that the droids do. Like they still have to be the underdogs. You still have to root for them, and it can't be cruel. They can't, Gungans run around carrying guns just feels wrong, right? And like they have those little their power like electrical pikes thing, like that zapped Jar Jar, and they have those little slingshots and the boomas, the big ones and the small ones, with like they crack the big like hard shells that crack and the plasma comes out and short circuits the droids. It's interesting how the Gungans use plasma, because like this is again very Star Wars nerdy into like the world of Naboo, but so there's plasma coming out of the planet, right? And so the Naboo use it for energy to like power their city and stuff. That's that power generator room we fight Darth
I didn't know that.
Darth Maul in later.
That's cool.
Huh. Yeah, and so because like the planet core is hollow, like that's so they can fly through it. So there's like discharges of plasma that can happen, and so they collect it, and then the Gungans use it for weapons. So the plasma that's what the boomas are, basically hard shells of if you throw it, it cracks, and plasma inside basically just sprays over the droids and short circuits them. So it's interesting to see how that difference between the Naboo and the Gungans is that they use the planet for different. The Gungans are warriors, the Naboos are pacifists, so they don't use the plasma for that. They use it for other things. But anyway, Yeah. So it's just cool because George talked about Lucas has talked about how he's thought about the logistics of all this and how each culture uses their technology and their weapons and their art and all that stuff. And he says you don't have to state it on screen, but all has to be thought out so you can design it and tell a story within that world. So that's just one of the aspects of that world that I always thought was kind of interesting, just to see how they use that plasma differently.
Huh, that's really cool. I'm glad you brought that up. I didn't know that. And that made sense. I never even thought about like flying through the planet's core. Like, oh, it's gotta be hollow. Like, oh, I never really thought about that. That's really cool. I like it. Huh. Wow, that's neat. Sorry, that just blew my mind. I'm trying to get back on track. I'm like, whoa, that's awesome.
You're good. Again, yes, the Star Wars nerdy fact got Nathan. Yeah,
that's right. It's so cool. I love that.
I was excited when I went there too. I'm like, oh, that's so cool. And explains. Yeah. So once we get to that fight with Darth Maul and the Jedi, we'll see that there, which we're about to get into. But
yes. Oh, and I just have to comment on the scene, man, where the camera pans down the aisle, basically between the droids and the Gungans. And it's just a crazy, just blaster fire going back and forth. I mean, we've never seen anything like that. I remember as a kid, being so excited. I still get excited seeing that. Just the intense blaster fire. We've never seen at this point in the story, but also at this point in Star Wars history. Like, we had never seen a huge army like this, and just all these blasters firing at once. It's just like, wow. Like, this is so cool.
I know, it's so intense. I love that shot. If you didn't bring it up, I was going to. That was going to be the last thing I brought up. Was like, that such a great shot, and it's such a good example of you put the punchline at the end of the joke is kind of the way of thinking about it. Every scene, like the most important or most intense or most iconic, whatever the most whatever that is of your scene, what the most you can do, that you always put it at the end before you switch to the next one. It's a great way to just keep the tension going. I mean, not always, but like, especially in an action scenario like this, battle scenes, the most crazy part always happens at the end of the scene before you switch. And so that's such a great shot to end on before you transition to the next part. So yeah, I love that shot.
Oh, it's just fantastic. I mean, wow. The sound design, everything, the angle, beautifully done. But then also that scene is just really briefly followed up with the catapults. You see kind of catapults going into the ranks. It's just a really satisfying shot to see, like, okay, we've seen the little boomers, but now we're gonna get the big ones. It just takes out this big splash of droids at once, which is kind of neat. I don't know, it's just a really satisfying feel. It's like when you're playing a video game like that where you're controlling armies and you see from the top down like that. It's really neat. See a bunch wiped out in one shot. It's really cool. Yeah, I really like it. It's also interesting. Two thoughts. One is it's just kind of a cool transition. It feels like you're almost like, as the cameraman, like zooming in real quick and then just flying out. Like, you're getting these quick, like, glimpses into each battle as you're flying in and out. It's like a quick zoom in, here's a pull out. I don't know. That's just my opinion or my thought. I don't know if George intended that, but it's pretty neat.
Very dynamic. Yeah.
Yeah, it's really cool. Because we started, I mean, we're literally in the face of one of those droids as they're standing up. It's just like, we're as close as you can get, and then it just kind of pans back out like, okay, we're going to take you to the next spot of the battle, like a cool drone shot. But also, I think it's really interesting. I've never noticed this before, seeing the contrast between the Gungans and the droids, like from that overhead shot with the catapults. Because the droids are like perfectly in formation, and the Gungans are just kind of all over the place. And it's just, I never really thought about that, the contrast between them. Yeah, like the Gungans are not there in order. They're not necessarily by rank, anything like that. Whereas the droids are just, here's your block of droids and you're just coming right on you. It's kind of a cool contrast.
Great observation.
You can just feel the character or the culture differences,
Mm-hmm. Totally.
Kind of
That's
fun.
cool. I never thought about that either. Yeah. Wow.
Yeah. I just now noticed that. Yeah.
Good call.
Cool.
Yeah.
So then back into the hangar.
Yes. And here we have, so the kind of aftermath of their first little skirmish with the battle droids in the hangar. They've cleared the hangar. They're ready to go. And this is, we don't really know it, but this is Anakin's last conversation with Qui-Gon before he dies. And it's, just Qui-Gon saying, hey, stay put. It's nothing too profound or crazy, but, this is the last time Anakin's going to see him alive. But they both, their thoughts are with them, and we, in the battle, Anakin later says, Qui-Gon told me to stay in this cockpit, and, Qui-Gon's last words are, train Anakin. So even though their kind of story it really ends here together in person. It continues as the story goes on and into the other movies. But I just caught me. I just noticed that the first time. Like, I don't know if it's played for any kind of significance in that way, but it just does. It happens to be the last time Anakin and Qui-Gon talk.
Yeah. Wow. That's cool. It's boy, I guess, yeah. Never think about that.
I could read way too much into it and get way too, smoking a pipe and like leaning back in my chair and going, it's like when Qui-Gon says, "Anakin, stay where you are," he's actually telling him like, "Stay like this, stay like the good kid you are, and don't turn to Darth Vader." That's when we're really too far into the territory of reading into things. But so yeah, I just thought of that, but I just as a joke. But yeah, I don't think there's anything super significant about the dialogue here. But just thought I'd bring it up. That it's the last time they talk.
I do think, I could be wrong, but I've thought this since I was a kid. It seems like a very dad thing to say, you just get this fatherly side of Qui-Gon here, stay there, don't move if you stay in that cockpit, and that's just a very fatherly thing to say. And it's a very kid thing for Anakin to do, be like, "Hey, he told me to stay here. Okay. I'm not technically disobeying." As he takes the ship out, it's like, yep. That's just a great father-son dynamic, as we've seen that Qui-Gon really is the father Anakin should have had. But as we're about to see with his big reveal, someone gets in the way of that with one of the most epic entrances ever. I love this. Oh man, these guys are it's just so casual. Doors open, music. Oh my goodness. Like just the way Darth Maul stands there. Oh my goodness. It's just, I don't know, man. It's hard to beat this. It's hard to beat the entrance there. The only one I can think of is maybe Darth Vader entering into the Tantive 4 in episode 4. But it's like, wow.
The Sith make good entrances. Yeah. They do. Yeah.
He's just so calm. I mean, he's in total control. It's just like, wow.
Yeah. I love that he was just waiting behind the door too. Like he's looking down, like he's not even like, and like he slowly lifts his head up to see him. Yeah, it's so cool.
Mm-hmm. Oh man, it's how do you put words to this? I mean, you can't because it's on film. That's why you filmed it.
Exactly. Yes,
it's just so great
for you. Yeah.
Oh man, and everything's just so great. The slow like up, like lifting his head. He looks. Everyone else jerks to a stop. You can kind of see them like, whoa. But Qui-Gon and Obi-Wan just are walking confidently towards him. We got this. We'll handle this. It's like, oh, man. It's so epic. I always thought it was interesting, too, how, like, Padme here is just like, okay, well, we're going to go this way. She's just, like, not bothered by him at all.
Yeah.
It's like, whatever.
I guess because she doesn't know what he is or what he does. She's like, all right, random dude, you want to take care of him? Okay, cool.
Yeah, I just find it funny. Like, nobody shoots at him, nothing. There's like, oh, okay, well. Let's go take the door on the left, guys. Yeah. I mean, I guess he's just learned to trust Qui-Gon at this point. But I'm just like, okay, you'll handle it. Sounds good. We're going to go a long way.
Yeah. And I love how in this scene, they're stuck between a rock and a hard place, right? Because Darth Maul shows up on this door. This door opens and, okay, Darth Maul's there. So Padme's like, all right, we're going to go the opposite direction. And then that door opens and droidekas are there. And so they're trapped between Darth Maul and droidekas. And so the two adversaries of the Jedis haven't beaten, right? So our heroes are trapped between those two things. And so Qui-Gon and Obi-Wan are dealing with Darth Maul, but who's going to deal with the droidekas? And so, of course, it's Anakin, right? Who
enter the chosen
who
one.
figures it out. Yeah, exactly. Anakin defeats the unbeatable enemy, is finally beaten by Anakin. And of course, Qui-Gon and Obi-Wan were upset their plans were upset by 2 droidekas, and now there's 3 just against Padme and her soldiers, so they have no chance. So Anakin, again, accidentally kind of finds his way into defeating them. And so I just love all these obstacles just stack up. So we got, a Sith, droidekas, and then all of a sudden, and this Sith has an advantage because of his weapon. He's got 2 lightsabers essentially in one. Like the reveal of the double blade is just like such a, oh wow, we are so not in a good spot right now.
Oh my goodness, man. I remember that so clearly. I mean, I remember the trailer. The first time he showed that in the trailer, I remember everybody just losing their minds. It's like, what, a double-bladed lightsaber? That's so cool. Oh man. So awesome. Still gives me
It's
goosebumps.
so weird because I grew up with it, so I wish that could have been new and fresh for me. I wish I could have been surprised by that.
Oh yeah, I do remember that. It was cool. It didn't matter if you like the prequels or not. Like everybody loves Darth Maul, you know. Like it's just, and seeing that is just, I'll never forget that. That was a big deal. Yeah, I geeked out about that.
You know, we talked about this way at the beginning of this film and how the Jedi take their cloaks off to reveal that they're kind of mysterious at first, and it reveals who they are. Like, oh, they're just humans like you and me. We can trust them. Sidious keeps his hood on, so he's mysterious, and the cloaked villain, the Phantom, right? But here we at the final time a cloaked figure takes their hood off, and it's devil horns. So like they're facing a demon. There's a monster that needs to be fought now. I just love that. Like, yeah, we're in trouble. If you didn't think we were in trouble before, I have horns. I have a red face and yellow eyes and horns. So yes, you're fighting a demon right now, basically. And so we're in trouble.
Yeah, and that's the first time he's had his hood off, right?
Mm-hmm.
This
Yep,
is,
first
we've never
time
seen
we
this. Yep. Mm-hmm. Yeah, and I just thought it was kind of a. At first, I thought it was kind of odd, but I've come to respect it. Just how they all take their robes off. There's this moment where it's just kind of a cool like samurai sort of thing. If like there's sort of a, I don't know if a respect is the right term, but there's sort of a respect for the battle here. I mean, I know they're just getting it out of the way so they can easily fight, but Darth Maul doesn't start out with a force choke. It doesn't start out by just hurling his lightsaber. They all just take the moment to take the robes off. Like, here we go.
Well, it's also just a film thing, like, because Darth Maul didn't take his cloak off to fight Qui-Gon in the first fight. He didn't reveal the second blade. And you'd think, if Darth Maul's goal was to kill Qui-Gon, why would he wear the cloak? Why would he not bring out the second blade? It's a film thing. It's a movie thing. You're saving some stuff for the audience. So like so in that sense, that's what the blade pops out at the end, because you want to save the wow moment for again, you put the punchline at the end. You don't want to put the best moment too early, but also them taking off the cloaks. Again, it's that preparation for the battle. It's so funny. Watch any really great movie battle scene. Doesn't have to be an army battle. It could be like a duel like this. There's so much about the preparation, just getting ready for the fight. And it can be taken to such an extreme degree, like Sergio Leone in The Good, the Bad, and the Ugly, which is that kind of classic Western, gunfight where it's a showdown where it's just the eyes looking at each other and they're waiting for the first person to draw. And it's just tension building and building and building and building and building until someone finally, draws the gun out of the holster. Like that. Sometimes great battles are made just because of that preamble, the build up to it. And so I think purely just taking the robes off, yes, it's just for freedom of movement, but also just giving them the chance to do it, like showing them doing it slowly, and like they're not like in a rush, like, oh, Darth Maul's going to attack quickly, I better take my robe off really quickly. They're doing it both. They're all three of them are very slowly, just kind of waiting for the first person to make a move. And that's all just to build tension. That's purely there, I think, for the audience, just to get excited and get hyped. So, and it worked, right?
It certainly works.
Exactly.
Yeah. Oh man, and I love how, like, the moment Darth Maul lifts his eyes, he, and at least Qui-Gon, if not Obi-Wan as well, never take each other's eyes off each other. You know what I mean? Like, they are locked in, and just like, even the way Qui-Gon like brushes past the guards and says, "We'll handle it." Like, he just stares straight into that guy's soul, man. And it's just met beat for beat by Darth Maul. He's just radiant, like radiating evil and arrogance. It's just great.
Yeah. Well, and there's so much history that's happening, because again, this is they know who they're facing now, right? It was a surprise. The first time Qui-Gon fought this guy, he was kind of like, okay, what just happened? Like, what? And then they, now after thinking about it, he's like, I think that was a Sith Lord. And we haven't seen, those haven't been around for 1,000 years. That's like Genghis Khan coming back and saying, oh, by the way, I got, he's causing trouble again. We got to go fight him. And it's ridiculous, but also, yeah, but Obi-Wan knows that too. Qui-Gon knows what this means. And so this is the first time that, I mean, technically it was Qui-Gon and Darth Maul in the desert, but this is like the first like legitimate duel between a Jedi and Sith in 1,000 years. So this is a huge deal. It's a big deal, like just to both of their, not just to us as audience because it's cool looking, but like in the story, to their traditions, to the Sith tradition and the Jedi tradition. This is a big moment. Yeah, and so just I love this fight. Everything about this scene is just dripping with metaphor and symbolism, and a lot of it points to that, like the history of what the significance of what's happening, but also it's looking forward to what will happen after this, and yeah, I don't know. So we'll get into it, but Yeah, I love it.
So good. I honestly think this is my favorite fight in all of Star Wars. You know, everyone kind of says like, "What's your favorite lightsaber battle?" I love the one in Empire Strikes Back. I love the one in Obi-Wan, Anakin, Revenge of the Sith. But this one, I think, just takes it home. It's just so good. Yeah, so good. So a piece of trivia here. I actually learned this a couple weeks ago. So Ray Park, the guy who plays Darth Maul, forgot to take his earring out. Did you know this? On the top left of the ear.
Is that why it's there? I remember noticing that in Clone Wars, actually. Like, Darth Maul has an earring. I'm like,
where I noticed
why does he have an earring? And then I realized, yeah, in the movie, like, oh, it's still there.
Yeah, I thought it was just a mole. Like I noticed it in Clone Wars, and I thought, oh, that must have just been like a wart or a mole or something that they just left from the actor, you know? Because they kind of do that with Obi-Wan. He's got one up here too. But I just found out like a couple weeks ago, like, oh no, that was an earring they forgot to take out, and they left it in a scene. And George said, hey, let's leave it, and they even put it in Clone Wars and everything. So I can see it here. So I was just curious if you knew about that. I never knew about that.
Yeah, I guess I didn't catch it in the movie. It's so funny because like it's so funny they probably could have, you know, taken it out and I wouldn't have noticed because I didn't notice it until Clone Wars because it's so prominent in the that simple character design. There's not a lot of detail like a human face, and so you can notice those things a little more easily. And I was just like, why does he have an earring? And then yeah, I realized, oh, he's always had one. I just never noticed it before.
Yeah, isn't that cool? I never even thought of an earring. It's like, oh, yeah, it's really neat. So, is there any significance to Obi-Wan jumping over him right off the bat? Is there, or is it just a cool fight scene?
So this is interesting because here we start to get into the territory of Nick Gillard being the writer, and George Lucas kind of taking a step back. So Nick Gillard, you know, he's a stunt coordinator for those who don't know, and he wrote these fights and figured them out and, you know, choreographed them. And so this battle is largely, you know, written in terms, not like dialogue, but like what happens, the action, each move is written by him and largely directed by him as well. George didn't direct as much of this. Nick Gillard actually directed a lot of it. So, yeah, so that is not written in the script. That's not detailed in the script. There's no reason for him to do that from Lucas that I know of. That's coming from Nick Gillard. So I think it's just for him to get behind him, just so that I think Obi-Wan's trying to, because at this point Darth Maul's facing both of them, so Obi-Wan's thinking to me, if I get behind him, it'll be harder to, you know, I can get him from behind. But you see that shot of like Darth Maul like fighting both of them in front and behind him, which is really cool. So
yeah, I love how he doesn't even look back at Obi-Wan. He just knows right where he is, and boom, yeah. I was curious if there was a significance to that, because I think, well, maybe not. I was just wondering if that's the first time we've seen a Jedi really do a significant flip like that. But I guess we saw Luke do something like that in Return of the Jedi. Anyway, just curious if there's significance. Because I know, like, the stunt coordinators, like, this is, like, they're telling a story here, right? Like, it's not just like, hey, let's do a cool move. I mean, occasionally, but there's a point to it. Like, we're trying to show their personality, their fighting styles. Like, it's all really intentional. So
yes, and I desperately want to do a podcast episode where we just talk about lightsaber fights, or maybe a couple of them where we just talk about lightsaber fights, because there is a whole lot after looking at the films as many times as I have, but also looking into what Nick Gillard has said in interviews and what he's talked about the fights. It's so interesting what he goes into and how much thought and how different the characters are and how he structures the fights, and it's so interesting. So yes, we do need to go into that sometime. I don't have it all in my head right now, so I can't. I don't have a lot of. I don't have much to say on all that right now. I have a couple ideas sprinkled throughout the scene, but definitely we need to go deeper on that because it's a fascinating subject.
Yes, I want to learn it. I want to hear what he's going to say, because I've heard people say that, like, it's his role. He did this move because of this. He did that because he's this or whatever, you know. Like, it's not just like, hey, let's just swing here because it looks really neat. So
no, it was all thought out. He invented a whole new style of sword fighting for this. It's based off a lot of different. Like, he even included techniques from like golf, techniques from tree chopping, like anything where you like move your arms in a certain way. He kind of kendo is a big part of it. That's pretty well known, but he incorporated a lot of different martial arts and sword fighting techniques and basically kind of created his own style for these prequel movies. So it's so cool to hear him talk about it. So if you ever find interviews of him, they're worth watching because he really goes into a lot of the details. So
yeah, if you find them, you should send them to me.
I have a whole list of them. I'll send them to you. Yeah.
Oh, please do.
I'd love to. Really interesting. Yeah. Also, just a shout out to him. He has a YouTube channel where he's posting. So when they did the fights for the movies, they did previs. So they would plan out the fights, and he would just film them with his stunt guys just on his little camera and show them to George for approval, and also just film them so you can kind of see how it works on the camera. So a lot of these ended up on screen, but a lot of times the editing, certain things were cut, or we cut away to a different scene. So these are kind of just, they were, when he recorded them, they're all filmed like in sequence and you get to see them. But a lot of things didn't make the cut. A lot of, scenes changed on the day. It's the filmmaking process. Things are always moving and changing. But on his YouTube channel, he's posted these, so you can see what the original fight between like Count Dooku and Anakin episode 2, where Count Dooku had 2 swords and Anakin had 2 swords, and there's this cool, like, there's all this cool stuff on there, the different versions of it, of how it was on film, but also fights you never did get to see. And so he's been posting those every once in a while. So those are really fun to see. And it's just
cool.
Yeah, it's like, wow, this is like a new prequel fight that I haven't seen before. So,
that's really cool. I'll have to check that out. Huh.
Yeah, so I think it's his name on YouTube, Nick Gillard on YouTube. But anyway, so
we get the droid to cuff fight here, which you kind of mentioned already. We see that still innocent side of Anakin. He wants to help, do what he can. Gets into a little trouble there.
I just love that R2-D2's with him. It's like him and Luke did in episode 4. He's now with Anakin, and they're together, gonna go out, having a little adventure in space, a little space battle where they're gonna blow up a very round looking ship, space station, whatever you want to call it. Yeah, but of course they take out the droidekas here. Yeah, and of course it's no accident that it's Anakin. We see him do it. The Jedi we could have seen the Jedi take out the droidekas. Like, this just was unnecessary for them to do at the time. I think it's not like Anakin's the only person who could. It's just that it's important in the story that he's the first person we see do it, because it shows his potential, it shows his power that he has, even when it's kind of just coming out at this point, kind of unintentionally, kind of accidentally.
Yeah, I think that's a real significance there, as we're starting to see him have the baton handed off to him. Because like we've talked about, this is mostly Padme and the Jedi story. It's not really Anakin's story quite yet. I mean, he's definitely a part of it, but it's not quite he's center stage. But he definitely has his role here. And I think that was very intentional. We're going to have Anakin be the one who turns the tide.
Yeah. He is the main character, but it's not really he hasn't really taken the reins of the plot yet. He's still in a world that's kind of, he's still joining a story already in progress.
Yeah. I also, just the small little details. I appreciate how the droidekas, like, they're animated in such a way where they see the ship coming and kind of take a step back. Like, whoa. I just appreciate that little detail like that. And just that George takes the moment to pause, to have even Padme and all the guards like go, huh. There's just that little look of like, oh, that worked out. That was really nice. I just appreciate that. Just very real life. He could have easily just had Anakin blast him and fly out, but he just took those moments to do that. I thought that was cool.
Yeah, seeing Padme and everyone's reaction to like, wow, that little kid just did that. That's awesome. That's it's so cool to see. Because Anakin's not going to go, wow, I'm awesome. Look what I just did. But so it's good to see other characters react to it. It's like, oh, the way is clear now. Let's go. Like she says, let's go.
Yeah. And I also appreciate too that for as good as Anakin is, this is happening on accident. You know what I mean? Like, he's not in complete arrogant control yet. There's still some like, I don't really know what I'm doing, but okay. I mean, I appreciate some of that. It just makes him feel more like a kid still. I mean, it'd be a little odd if he's like, I got this. This is totally under control. I mean, he'll kind of get there in a little bit, but where he's like, let's try spinning. Okay. This is what that does. He's learning. He's figuring it out. We're seeing that quick learner side of him. And still, he's a good pilot. We're seeing that because we've known that since episode 4. Anakin was a really good pilot. So it's kind of fun to see. But one more thing I will comment on is I really appreciate the detail that goes into this. And I was just looking at this when Anakin goes into space. Like, you should see some of the clouds like whipping past the cockpit. I think that's really cool detail. Like, we've never seen that before. Well, no, have we? Maybe a little bit, right? When Luke comes down to Dagobah. Maybe we had seen that before. But I just really appreciate seeing like enter atmosphere, going out of atmosphere. Like, this is a cool detail. That, at least as a kid, I always like, that's super cool to think about, like leaving atmosphere, going to space. It'd be so cool.
All right, that's it for this episode. Join us in the next one as we continue our series on the Phantom Menace. As always, thanks for listening, and on to the next one.